Final Fantasy VII was one of the very first RPGs I played, and I've probably beaten it about 20 times. So it's safe to say that I've tried every single party in this game, all of which have Cloud as a mandatory member. But in every RPG I play, I always gravitate towards the girls. Can you beat Final Fantasy VII with only hot girls? First things first, let's define the exact rules for this challenge. Only hot girls can heal, attack, or buff, and they can't do any of that until all of the boys are dead. Similarly, the boys may only do one thing. They can attack themselves until they are dead. And if no girls are available to fight, we'll just suffer through it the best that we can. And finally, the only summon we're allowed to use is Shiva. And yes, she is objectively the coldest girl, but I think we can all agree that she is very hot. And if you want the full set of rules, check out the Discridly-Do, which also has some nifty-difty links. Chapter 1. Very Hot Ladies. When the games start, we are teased immediately by a hot girl's visage, but not a single one is available to fight with. So we fight a couple soldiers and recruit our first two fighters, Cloud, whom we name Whimsicott, and Barret, whom we name Granbull. My chat chose these characters live, so if you want to be a part of the madness, make sure you moonblast that subscribe button. We have a ton of fun, and you don't want to miss any of my streams, do you? So we fight a Skorupi bot, have Electrode cast Explosion, turn Biggs into a Cyndaquil, personally dismantle the Petalil slave trade, and catch a ride on Rotom Train. But after all of that nonsense, we head to our local Pokemon Pinball Arcade and finally recruit our first hot girl, Tifa, whom we name Jigglypuff. We round her out further by upgrading her armor and materia, and then I do something that will really help me out later. I buy a bunch of grenades. These are one-time use items that do about 130 damage, much more than Jigglypuff's attacks at the beginning of the game. And having done that, we head on to destroy another reactor. And upon placing another explosive, we fight our first of many solo fights with Jigglypuff, the Airbuster. Normally in this fight, alternating attacks with characters does a little bit of extra damage. Hitting an enemy in the back is the reason that happens. But with only Jigglypuff, that's not going to be an option. Once you hit him once, Airbuster turns around and faces Jigglypuff for the entire fight. At this point in the game, Jigglypuff's most damaging attacks are her Limit Break, which does around 69 damage. Nice! And her Thunder attack, which does around 50. Her physical attacks are pretty gosh darn weak. Now, I could have used grenades here to shorten this battle, but I'm glad I didn't. I will need every single grenade that I bought for later. The main challenge of this battle is Airbuster's Big Bomber attack. This depletes about a third of Jigglypuff's health. However, it very quickly runs out of ammunition for it, leaving it with only its weaker Energy Ball attack and allowing Jigglypuff to finish it off with her bajillionth Limit Break of the battle. And at the battle's conclusion, she gains her second level 1 Limit Break, Somersault. Her Limit Break is pretty gosh darn great and very different from everyone else's in the game, and we'll discuss that a bit later. Because for now, Whimsicott is blown away by Airbuster's giant fartsplosion and drifts into a church, as one does. And we meet Aerith, whom we name Gardevoir, and she's going to be in our party for the entire game. Unfortunately though, her psychic and fairy type powers make her a prime target for Shinra to capture, so I equip her with a Titan Bangle and materia and head into the next trial. Now normally in this section, it's Whimsicott's job to thwart Shinra with barrels, but since he's not a hot girl, we're not doing that. Instead, we purposely flub it and let Gardevoir's magic do the talking. The Shinra grunts are pretty weak though, and Gardevoir chews through them with ease. So after we chill with Gardevoir's mom for a bit, we sneak out to the local playground. There we see that Jigglypuff, based on her charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, as well as a huge set of polygonal chesticles, has been chosen to participate in Don Corneo's drag race. But as it turns out, the auditions are ongoing and Whimsicott and Gardevoir are trying out as well. And thus begins one of my favorite parts of Final Fantasy IX. Did I just say 9? Thus begins one of my favorite parts of Final Fantasy VII. In order to be admitted to this circus, Whimsicott needs to slay the runway in a look he creates out of borrowed materials. So we grab a silk dress from Garment District, a diamond tiara from the materia shop, and a blonde wig from some wrestlers. A blonde wig from some wrestlers. And then we head into the Honeybee Inn. Didn't mess up that one. I don't know why. Whistlers. And this part is saucy. I don't know any other RPG in which the protagonist goes into a brothel, has a corgi, and hot tub sesh with 8 other muscle studs, and then squeezes his teeny booty into a pair of stanky and crunchy bikini briefs. And if you know any RPG that has this level of gay smut in it, please let me know in the comments. It's not for me. It's for a friend. for a friend, I promise. No, it's not for me. Whimsicott also gets a full makeover by this lady in a bee costume, but that seems a little Rebecca Glasscock level pedestrian at this point. Anyway, great news. As long as Whimsicott is in this outfit, we have a third hot girl in our party. And joy of joys, Whimsicott wins the design challenge despite an extremely basic runway walk, and his reward is a kiss from Don Corneo, which he enthusiastically accepts. But unfortunately, Jigglypuff and Gardevoir sabotage his success, and Don Corneo is done with this bullshit. He drops my 3 fairy children into the sewer, just like what happens in the real show, and it's time for them to lip sync for their lives! And by that I mean fight the next boss apps. And also, unfortunately, Whimsicott changes out of his dress, which means we're back to only 2 girls. And frankly, the design of this boss is quite weird to me. His most dangerous attack is Sewer Tsunami, which does minimal damage to my beautiful Titanias, but does 4 times as much damage to himself as well. He's weak against fire, and Jigglypuff does have the fire materia, so I have her alternate between casting fire and using her limit breaks. Gardevoir, since she only has the weaker ice materia, primarily heals. And while I do get low on HP occasionally, Apps ultimately wets himself to death. And here's where the fun really starts. Because our next boss is Reno, and Reno is going to be a huge problem. And let me tell you why. Reno's pyramid attack completely disables a character, and since we'll only have Jigglypuff available for this next battle, that's a big problem. And these pyramids, as well as the battle itself, have a couple of weird qualities that change how we have to approach them. First, they mark the character inside as dead. That means that if we're following the rules and killing our other characters, we're f***ed. Jigglypuff getting trapped will always be a game over, so the goal is to kill him fast enough that he can't cast his pyramid spell. But that brings up our second problem. Granbull will join the party at the beginning of the battle, and he'll always start with full health. This means that before I can do anything to Reno, I have to kill Granbull, and despite the fact that I barely used him at all, he's still reasonably bulky. But third, and worst of all, the pyramids are marked in the game as enemies. This means that any attacks that have random targeting will randomly attack the pyramids on occasion, decreasing the damage I can do to Reno. So if Granbull is pyramided and I use Jigglypuff's limit break, which has random targeting, there's a chance that her attacks will target the pyramid itself. This will both free Granbull, meaning I now can't act until I finish him off, and sponge some damage that I desperately need to go towards killing Reno. The solution to this, for better or for worse, is a bit of a grind. But fortunately, the train graveyard is the perfect place to do this. These dragon-type monsters drop ethers, which not only will be important to restore MP, but will also make me rich. Each one sells for 750 gil, which means after stealing a ton of them, I'll be all set for cash for a while. And with regard to how much we need to grind, I have one goal. I need Jigglypuff to get every single limit break possible. She gains her first level 2 and level 3 limit breaks by killing a certain number of enemies, and she can gain the other limit breaks by casting her old limit breaks in the same level. And most characters just gain stronger limit breaks that do more and better effects with every level, but Jigglypuff does something a little different. Each limit break is a discrete attack that she does during her entire limit break sequence, and stopping her attack reels on the allows her to double the damage of an individual part of the sequence. However, as I alluded to before, Jigglypuff's limit break doesn't just select one target randomly and hit them with all of her limit break reels. Each of these instances of damage has a randomized target. That means I can't use her limit break until Granbull is actually dead and not just pyramided, or he'll just absorb a bunch of the damage, making it impossible to kill Reno. And the grind to get Jigglypuff's limit breaks is long but not hard. Phrasing? After killing hundreds of enemies, she finally gets her dolphin kick before we head on to Reno. It took about 2 hours to make this happen, so on my way up his tower, I make sure to prep Jigglypuff's limit break, and then we climb up to the top of the plate to start the battle. And on my first try, Jigglypuff immediately gets pyramided, which is our first death of the run. Yeah. There's going to be heavy RNG here, because Reno needs to target Granbull with the pyramid first, or we're toast. And the second time, he targets Jigglypuff again, crushing my hopes of this battle going at all well. On attempt number 3, the pyramid hits Granbull and I activate Jigglypuff's limit break. Unfortunately, I missed 2 of the commands, meaning my damage is far lower than I'd hoped. She only attacks the pyramid once, but unfortunately, she only does about 450 damage to Reno, and he has 1000 HP. And Granbull is now alive again, meaning he must die before I proceed. Fortunately though, I have a bunch of grenades, but after throwing just one, Jigglypuff is trapped again, sending me back to the bottom of the tower. Yeah, there's a lot more sad music incoming before I complete this battle. Anyway, we returned for attempt number 4, and a new strategy is born. One interesting thing about limit breaks is that they disable your physical attacks. However, remember how I brought those grenades earlier? Well, they do great damage, better than either character can do with their physical attacks. So I start by having both of my party members throw throws some grenades into Granbull's doggy face, and he gets down pretty low before Jigglypuff gets pyramided. Woof. Okay, number 5. Same strategy, but this time Granbull gets pyramided. I use Jigglypuff's limit break here and once again whiff the last 2 hits, which is bad, but regardless, she hits the pyramid 3 times and Reno only once, so who cares? And to add insult to injury, Reno hits Jigglypuff with his Electromag Rod, inflicting the stop status, and then immediately pyramids her again. I hate triangles now. I hate them. Yes, even when those triangles are Lara Croft's boobs. Anyway, since I'm not getting close to victory, I rethink this battle again, and I realize something. What if grenades are the key to this battle? Granbull gets pyramided here, and I decide to try out throwing a grenade at the pyramid, and it works. Grenades destroy pyramids. He comes out of it, and Reno immediately takes him out with an Electromag Rod. I use Jigglypuff's limit break, and unfortunately miss the last 2 hits, meaning it's a race to hit him with grenades before he pyramids, and I lose the race. Devastating, but I've made progress. Okay, try number 7. We start off strong with a pyramid on Granbull, and it gets destroyed, Granbull dies, and I once again miss the last 2 hits of the limit break. And you already know how this ends. Jigglypuff becomes one with ancient Egypt. Number 8 is another immediate pyramid puff moment, and so is number 9. Number 10, however, starts off well. Granbull gets down to low health and gets pyramidated. He's released, and then he kills himself with a grenade. That means it's time to limit break. I hit the first 4 hits of her limit break with double damage, and the 5th and 6th I elect not to gamble on. Those don't get the bonus, but those extra hits are still valuable. So I chuck 1 grenade. No dice, he's still alive, but a 2nd grenade finishes him off. And that means that I now know that this challenge is possible. Unfortunately though, the Turks have captured Gardevoir, and the bomb that Reno planted on the pillar detonates, destroying the entirety of Sector 7. And more importantly, this explosion destroys globally loved hot girl Jessie. She wasn't in our party, but I miss her ability to hack into security systems and into my heart. Rest in power, girlfriend. But while Jessie lays, Gardevoir still slays, and it's time to go rescue her. So I climb the eponymous wall of Wall Market and head to Shinra headquarters. I asked my chat if they wanted me to sneak up through the stairs or fight my way into Shinra headquarters, and they elected that I fight, which I do. But my obsession with TLC's extreme couponing has left me unable to turn down a bargain. And as it turns out, the stairwell has a free elixir. So after I ride the elevator up, I go back down 30 flights of stairs to pick up that free piece of loot, and then I climb back up. But let's be real, Whimsicott's been sleeping through this entire game, and he needed the exercise anyway, so sorry not sorry. Anyway, once that's done, we grab the elemental materia for guessing a password, and we also get an all materia and a 4 slots from the door puzzle. And after that, we break Gardevoir out of jail along with Red, whom we name Sylveon. But Hojo now 6 sample HO512 on us, and for the sake of my sanity, I'll be renaming enemies who I think have stupid names, or if I just can't remember them, or if I just feel like it. I do what I want, okay? It's my channel. So let's call this wart face Garbodor. Unfortunately, the first time I fight him, I don't pay attention to the dialogue, you know, the way that Final Fantasy is supposed to be played, and I accidentally send Jigglypuff to help out Gardevoir. That's a fail, and I reset and I pay attention this time. And I won't be telling you about every fail in this video, but if you want to have some fun chatting with me while I play, join the Tantacles Discord community. That's where I post my streaming schedule as well as updates on my videos. My community members have been doing their own challenge runs, including some Final Fantasy VII runs, and they are super fun. So click the link in the Squidly-Doo to come play along with us. We have a lot of fun. Seriously, it's fun. It's fun.
Come along to the Discord.
Anyway, the second time I actually put Jigglypuff in the party and I face off against Garbodor. This garbage monster has 3 Trubbish that fight along with it, and defeating them is completely unhelpful. While they actually do a fair amount of damage and it would be nice to get rid of them, Garbodor will just revive any of them I defeat. I think they have to be killed altogether to stay down, but you know, let me in the comments, I don't remember anymore. And I also don't really care because I eventually hit Jigglypuff's limit break, which fortunately mostly hits the big boy, and a fire spell finishes him off, making for a very anticlimactic boss. And despite our victory, we're captured by the Turks and thrown in the Shinra jail. Fun fact, most companies call their jails an office. And when the dust settles, it appears that a wild Zoroark has killed all of the prisoners. Thank God, they're finally out of their misery. But we're not dead yet, and we've got some battling to do. And the first of them is against a couple of elevator robots. And Gardevoir is alone for this battle, and unfortunately these robots can't be hit by short-range attacks. But remember how I saved all those grenades and said they'd be important later, and then you were wondering, is he ever going to come back to that? Okay, well the time is now. Each grenade does about 140 damage, much more than anything else Gardevoir can do, and it's not long before Robot 1 is destroyed, and in comes the second robot, the helicopter helicopter robot. At this point though, I'm out of grenades, but fortunately Gardevoir has fire materia equipped and she melts down this bag of bolts. A little slower than I'd like, but next time I'll make sure I buy more grenades, it's fine. Whimsicott next has a solo battle with Rufus, which goes just fine, but isn't that interesting because boys are gross. And then we play the motorcycle game. And again, Whimsicott is the only one who can act in this minigame too, so I just pretend that it's a girl riding. Just close your eyes, it's easy. There's no voice acting. But at the end of our ride, we fight another boss, the spiky roly tank, whom I'll call Toxapex. And blissfully, we finally have two girls back in our party. Toxapex's most damaging move is its area of attack flamethrower spell, which deals over a third of my character's health. Fortunately though, its other moves are not nearly as damaging. I get off Jigglypuff's limit break, of course miss the final two hits again, and barrage Toxapex with a couple of bolt attacks, and it goes down. And with that victory, we permanently leave Midgar and head on to Calm. Chapter 2: Stories and Snakes. Before we head to Calm, we get the Mater Magic enemy skill from these drill bots. The enemy skill materia is one of the most broken materia in the game, and Mater Magic, an area of effect attack, is an excellent start. This materia gets some of the most amazing abilities. To learn a new one, all you have to do is get hit by them and win the battle. In other words, you must see the fanfare at the end of the battle. Let's circle back to that point in just a little bit. So we do eventually make it to Calm and watch what might be the longest cutscene in Final Fantasy history. So long that it has its own intermission. But to summarize, Whimsicott left his and Jigglypuff's hometown of Nibelheim at a young age to chill with Zoroark at Shinra headquarters. He came back years later, and during that visit, Zoroark discovered his origins in the basement of the pharmaceutical labs. As it turns out, he was infused with Januvia in the womb, making him crave sugar. So he goes to tell the people of Nibelheim what he's discovered and requests some Haichu and Chips Ahoy. And no one gives a single shit about his carbohydrate needs until he burns the entire city to the ground. You know, people often ask me if I'm on drugs, but actually I'm just like this. Anyway, as the story goes, Whimsicott saved Jigglypuff, Zoroark had some mommy issues, and back in the present, Whimsicott's blood sugar now also gets low. So he decides to save the rest of the story for later. We next head on to the Chocobo Ranch, get the Choco/Mog materia, which we won't use because it's not a confirmed hot girl, and head through the wetlands. And I had a thought here, and I don't think often, but I made an exception on this particular day. The wetlands contains the Midgar Zolom, also known as Arbok, and this Pokemon has an attack that can completely change our game. This attack is an area of effect fire attack and will completely incinerate anything that isn't immune to fire for most of the game. But there's a problem. Arbok has extremely powerful attacks, and my character has to survive all of them in order to learn this skill. Remember, you gotta see the fanfare at the end of the battle. And my strategy for this was to equip the elemental materia into a defense slot linked with the fire materia. Without leveling the elemental materia, it will have the damage from beta, making it much more survivable. And to decrease the damage further, I use a tranquilizer on Jigglypuff, which causes the sad status. That decreases the damage she takes and also decreases how quickly her limit break meter fills. But even with this incredible strategy, there's another problem. The Midgar Zolom not only has hugely powerful attacks, but it can also knock a character out of battle once it hits half health. And until it does that, it won't use the beta spell at all. It always knocks out the character who hits it as a counterattack, and then its next counter is beta. And while it doesn't kill, because it's a counterattack, beta pauses the ATB gauge. And because it does that, Arbok immediately gets the next move, which is a regular attack, and this 1-2 combo is enough to knock out Jigglypuff. Now, the obvious solution is to grind until the elemental materia is at least level 2, but I don't want to trivialize the game by gaining too many levels, so I let it go and accept my inadequacy. For now. So ultimately, I call this section one huge fail, cry into my newly caught Chocobo, and plan to come back later. And unfortunately, we move on into a teensy-tiny disaster. We fight through this weird cave next, and unfortunately, I encounter a weird glitch. On exiting the game, my game crashes. I'm playing on the Switch, but this is exactly the same place my game crashed when I played through my cloud-only run on the PS5. Fortunately, my chat seems to know how to fix this. Throughout this run, I've been using the speed up function, and apparently that's the cause of the glitch here. If you take off the speed up function, you don't encounter this glitch and your game doesn't crash, and we do it and it works. So we go defend a Ho-Oh, whom I'll talk more about later, and recruit everyone's favorite ninja, Yuffie, whom we named Tinkaton. And while I did say earlier that Gardevoir would remain in my party for the entire game, I decide to replace her with Tinkaton. You know, just to try it out for a little bit. No other reason, just want to see how it feels. Just want to know how she feels in the party instead of Gardevoir. Don't hate me, because I don't know why, but I have a funny feeling that Gardevoir is going to... Our next stop is Junin Harbor. Unfortunately, this girl and her Palafin partner pissed off a Magikarp, and that Magikarp evolves into a Gyarados and attacks us. Now, this boss is kind of fun. Yes, it can do damage, but that isn't too big a deal. But what is a big deal is its bubble attack, which envelops and disables a character, kind of like the pyramid. But these bubbles can only be disabled with magic attacks this time, unlike the pyramids, which can only be disabled with physical attacks. So Jigglypuff gets bubbled, which makes her even more round, and for some reason I couldn't figure out how to target the bubbles, so I target Jiggly again and she dies. I revive her quickly, and then of course Tinkaton gets bubbled, but a Matra magic attack removes her from her watery prison. Then Jigglypuff gets bubbled again before the end of the battle, but Tinkaton finishes off Gyarados with a super effective fire spell, and its final tsunami frees Jiggly from her prison. But unfortunately, Gyarados' final tsunami makes this little girl a little too wet, and Whimsicott uses his cotton balls to dry her off and save the day. And now that we saved her, her Palafin helps us get up to the Shinra military base. Chapter 3. A parade, a boat, and a bug on a ball. While we may be Shinra's enemies, we put aside our differences for a pride parade and a gun show. Do we show ourselves well? Hell no, but we do receive an Who could that be? Good morning. I don't have much time. I'm Captain Tantacles, and I've been trying to sell my boat for the last 15 years, but Tantacles keeps telling people that boats are bad. Buy my boat. It's wonderful. Boat ownership is amazing. Give me a call at 216-55... Oh, shit. Oh, no one was there. It was weird. I haven't had a ring and run in years. Anyway, we cruise on someone else's boat as a prize for our poor performance in the military drills. And that's the best kind of boat. Somebody else's boat. And this particular cruise has a distinguished musical guest, Jennifer Lopez, or Jenno from the block if you're nasty. And her presence on this boat is yet another compelling piece of evidence that maritime purchases always lead to disaster. Don't buy a boat. But seriously, Jenno is nasty. Her most frequent attack is W Laser, which doesn't do too much damage at all. But she also has access to the stop spell. She successfully uses that on Jigglypuff, which completely removes her cuboid jiggle physics. Heaven forfend! Jigglypuff quickly recovers though, and she starts barraging Jenno with Matra Magic, Limit Breaks, and regular magic. Unfortunately, the second and third Jiggle Stop spells miss, and one final Matra Magic puts Jenno on the floor. But this is not the last time we'll see Jenno from the block. And now that we've defeated this cruise ship diva, we dock at Costa del Sol. We take a beach day with unethical scientist Barbie, cannibalize this hot girl bird to get some Phoenix Downs, and bring the girls to their favorite place in the entire world, Goldine's Saucer. There we meet Caitlin Smith, and an emergency arises. I've been polling my chat throughout this run for fairy Pokemon names, and of the 4 options for Caitlin Smith, 2 of them tied, Mimikyu and Slurpuff. But we hold a runoff, and the final winner and the name of this adorable stuffed animal is... Mimikyu. So we discover a bunch of dead people and get banished to the desert for a crime we didn't commit. And in the desert, we meet Granbull's bestie Dine. They have matching gun arms, twinsies, and we have a brief fight with him. Since this is a mandatory Granbull only battle, I won't dwell on it too much except to say one thing. Poison is kind of a broken status in this game. It does continuous damage to many enemies, including bosses, and even more importantly, Poison does that without activating counterattacks. And this includes counterattacks that happen at certain health thresholds, like Dine's. And for that reason, I use Poison to defeat Dine. I poison him and just wait him out until the poison kills him. More on that strategy later, because it's gonna happen again. And once we defeat Dine, we win a Chocobo race and are acquitted of our crimes. Or maybe we get parole. I'm not sure how they rationalize our release in this universe. Oh, and we also get a car. That's nice. And it's not a boat. We then drive over to the ruined reactor next, where we fight Reno and and Rude. I hit Reno with everything I've got, and once he's defeated, Rude retreats with him and they yield the Death Blow materia. The attacks from this materia do extra damage but have low accuracy, and maybe we'll get around to using it later. We hang out in the planetarium with Buggin' Huggin', and he rides a ball that kinda looks like the air ball that Aang in Avatar The Last Airbender rides. We then grab some HP plus materia in the shop, and we're ready for Buggin' Huggin's challenge. Unfortunately, in this section, Sylveon is required, so we can choose only one hot girl to accompany us. So I choose Tinkaton and I head on in. And right away, I have a fail. I attack by accident with Sylveon, meaning I have to reset. But Tinkaton heads back in, and while I'm in Buggin' Huggin's cave, I make sure to grab the added effect materia. This materia adds the status effect from the linked materia to either offense or defense depending on where it's placed. This doesn't have much utility right now, but it's going to be one of the most useful materia in the game in just a little bit. And while we're here, I fight one of these spider enemies. And these guys suck. They deplete more than half of my health with just one Sting Bomb attack, so if I'm not careful, I'll get completely wrecked. However, this enemy eventually runs out of MP, meaning its damage is completely nerfed, and Tinkaton takes it out with a Grease Lightning Limit Break. But now it's time for the boss, whom I'll call Dusknoir. Dusknoir normally isn't too threatening. It's undead, so an X potion will take it out in just one hit. But my chat challenged me to fight it without using that strategy. It has two sidekicks who will possess my characters, but they can only do fire damage. And fortunately, I equipped Tinkaton with the Fire Ring, which nullifies that. And while I'm not in any real danger of dying, this undead dude bro does have Drain, which is annoying and prolongs the process of making him more dead than he already is. And since the battle goes so slowly, I eventually get bored and use an attack item, which surprisingly finishes him off, which means it's time to leave Mount Corel. Chapter 4. Balls, Orbs, and Spheres. We next head to Nibelheim, and there I'm seeking a little bit of redemption. In my cloud-only run, which I will link in the Discridly do, my chat strongly encouraged me not to open the safe. But like a small child who sees the cookie jars left unattended, I had to reach inside. And the lost number was a hassle and a half. The first phase of the battle was fine, but once he got down to around half health, he went berserk, wrecked, and I died. But I wanted revenge, and the lost number has a teensy-tiny weakness that completely breaks it. And once again, that weakness is poison. It will only progress to phase 2 if you lower its HP to less than half with an attack. But if he's brought to half health with poison, he's still dangerous, but he won't start casting insanely powerful spells. So I poison him and I wait. And eventually he just dissolves into nothing, yielding the rather useless Cosmo Memory Limit Break. Sylveon is not a girl, period, so I don't really care about it. We head downstairs, hang out with another non-girl, and then use the other thing we got from the safe to recruit the hottest non-girl in the game, Vincent. And we name Vincent Grimmsnarl, and we head through the reactor to fight our next boss, the Materia Keeper, whom I will call Ariados. And unfortunately, I have a massive fail here. This itsy bitsy spider can also be afflicted with the poison status, and I forgot to equip my biomateria. I only have one way to inflict poison here, and it's my 2 toxic wastes. So I throw them, but unfortunately they do some piddly damage, but don't inflict poison. That means we're doing this one the old-fashioned way. Thank you. Does it have boba in it? Isn't it in the package? And once again, this is a 2-phase battle. Phase 1 is pretty manageable, but phase 2 is somewhat problematic. At this point, Ariados has 2 new ways to make my life miserable. Trine, which does all-party thunder elemental damage, and Cure, which, well, it cures. I hope you already knew that. But the awesome thing is that Trine can be learned by my enemy skill materia, and it does a lot of damage. Anyway, he eventually manages to take out Tinkaton, but she's able to get back into action pretty quickly. And interestingly, even though Ariados uses Trine, he doesn't absorb lightning damage himself, meaning we can turn this spell back on him. And with a few of those, along with a limit break from Jigglypuff, he goes down. We then head to Rocket Town, where we recruit Sid, whom we name Altaria. And Altaria has something we want. A plane. Unfortunately though, Shinra also wants Altaria's plane, and the only way to settle this is with a battle against Palmer. And unfortunately for him, his only attacks are single target elemental shots with his Mako gun and smacking his bum like a baboon. So a few attacks and limit breaks take him out with great efficiency. Now if you've watched my channel before, you know that we only have one specific rule here, and that is don't buy a... Again? What? Twice in a day? Kids, I'm gonna wreck you! Hello, I'm back. How are you? Just a figure of speech. Don't respond. He's about to slander boats again. And I want to remind you, boats are amazing. Of course they Who the hell do you think you are, buddy? Why I oughta... Please excuse that brief interruption. Where were we? Okay, well, I don't authorize buying a boat, but fortunately, my fairy-type Pokemon perform a magic trick. They transform Altaria's plane into a boat, circumventing this rule, and we head to the Temple of the Ancients. But before that, I have some business to attend to. While Trine is a great spell, we have some other enemy skills that will help us enhance our repertoire. I grab White Wind from this Tropius, Big Guard from these Corsola, and Aqua Breath from this Hydreigon. And these skills will be very useful in just a little bit. But then we head to the Gold Saucer to grab the Keystone from Dio, and I find out something fun. Dio forces you to fight in the arena to earn the Keystone, but it's a solo battle with only Whimsicott. And since he's dead, the battle just immediately ends. And despite the fact that Whimsicott wimped out, Dio still gives us the Keystone. And on one hand, this bolsters participation trophy culture, but on the other hand, it angers ableists, which I support. But now a huge problem arises. We have to go on a date with one of our party members. And unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention to affection levels in this playthrough. That means that I end up on a date with Jigglypuff. And based on everything I've read about runs of this game, if you don't go on a date with Granbull, you fail and you need to start the run from the beginning. So I delete my... No, I don't. I'm not doing that. But really, massive fail. Anyway, my favorite part of the date is the play. I do not read my lines correctly. Jigglypuff whacks me with her double slap attack, and now it's actually time to head to the Temple of the Ancients. Chapter 5, The Pool Party. The game really wants us to use Gardevoir in the Temple of the Ancients, because she's the only ancient, so I guess now we'll keep her in our party for the rest of the game. But something unfortunate happens here. In the Flava Flav clock, I get knocked into the hole by one of the clock hands, and I have to fight these two Sizors. Unfortunately, this battle is a pincer attack, meaning they consistently deal double damage because my character's backs face them, and a Jigglypuff and Gardevoir get absolutely destroyed. On the second try, the fight goes even worse, and my Fairy Fatales go down even quicker than before. Phrasing? But remember those enemy skills I got earlier? Well, I realized at this point that I should be using them to make this fight easier. To start, I cast Big Guard from my enemy skill materia. This casts Barrier, Magic Barrier, and Haste, making damage a lot more manageable. And then I use Jigglypuff's Limit Break, which immediately takes out one of the Sizors. And then the second one goes down to a Trine attack. But there's not even a moment to breathe because I next head on to fight Mega Salamenche. And honestly, compared to the Sizors, this boss isn't too bad. I start off with a Big Guard and then pummel him with Aqualung spells. And because he only does single target damage, we're easily able to heal off his damage and drown him. But if you thought I fought some hard bosses so far, things are about to get crazy because it's time to fight Rotom Wall. This battle has two phases and both are pretty terrifying. But first, Whimsicott got healed after the last battle, so we take him out. And then a rock attack hits Jigglypuff for about half her health. Our opening move is a Limit Break from Jigglypuff, and this immediately sends Rotom Wall into the second phase. He uses Wall Rush, and then two rock attacks take out Jigglypuff. I try to get Jiggly back alive for what seems like forever, but every time I revive her, he either hits her with a rock or uses a Cave-In attack. And the third time I revive her, Gardevoir instead gets taken out by a rock attack. But after healing up with an elixir, I manage to get Big Guard up on Jigglypuff, and that makes her a lot more bulky. And then we wake up Gardevoir, heal her with a White Wind, and recast Big Guard on Gardevoir. And after I get my ladies back up to full health, I go back to our age-old strategy of casting Aqualung. It doesn't do that much, but it does far more than Gardevoir's physical attacks. Another Big Guard recast, a failed Petrify attack, and some healing and Aqualungs later, I get Jiggly's Limit Break back up. My 5-hit combo does a ton of damage, but then Gardevoir goes down again. And once again, getting her revived is freaking awful. This guy's AI just loves to re-kill downed characters, but after an arduous 70 bajillion tries, I finally revive Gardevoir, cure her with an elixir, and recast Big Guard. Jigglypuff's Limit Break returns, and I pray I don't miss any hits. And I literally miss 3 of them. But it doesn't matter because the 3 hits I do get are enough to finish off Rotom Wall and earn us the Black Materia. And of course, we immediately give the Black Materia to Zoroark because because he's daddy. And maybe I just blocked this part of the game out, but hypnotized Whimsicott uses Pound Attack on Gardevoir. But I guess she's invincible or something because she materializes in Viridian Forest and invites us to meet her there. And the reason she went to Viridian Forest is to learn a new hidden machine move, Dive. And who better to tutor her than Zoroark? But before she can show off what she's learned, we get into an encounter with a wild Gothitelle. And while Gothitelle is not a water type, unfortunately for her, she only knows water type moves. And since I grabbed a water ring from this area, I absorb all water type moves and Gothitelle gets taken out quite quickly. And unfortunately, Gardevoir now shows off her dive skill and leaves our party permanently. The reason? Well, it turns out that she is a huge fan of pool parties. She's been invited to an exclusive one and she'd rather attend that than help us save the world. And personally, I find that selfish. Chapter 6, The Life Sperm. So now that we've dropped Gardevoir off at the pool, we follow Zoroark up to the glacier, crash our snowboard into literally everything, and fight a very powerful Doduo. Fortunately, I still have Jigglypuff equipped with the Ice Ring, which means she absorbs his Ice Breath attacks. That makes this battle a lot less pressing. Even better is that both heads are quite vulnerable to Aqualung. Tinkaton's magic is far better than Jigglypuff's, but they still both do respectable damage. And within minutes, both heads are defeated and they cast their final moves at once, taking out Jigglypuff, but Tinkaton survives to slay another day. And what follows here is my least favorite part of the game. You have to pass through these weird barriers and I feel like I can never get it right. But I do make it through the first two and we encounter a wild Trevenant. And once again, the way forward is the enemy skill materia, namely the Aqualung attack. Unfortunately, I get a bit overzealous and Jigglypuff gets taken out by a red light, but she's revived pretty quickly. But then I cast Big Guard to prevent that from happening again. By the way, I forgot to mention it, but I found the added cut materia a bit earlier. This materia allows Jigglypuff to get an extra hit in every time she uses the connected materia, in this case Death Blow. That means that even if her Death Blow misses, she'll still get in a full attack of damage. And that's a powerful combo now, but just you wait until you see what we can do with it later. Anyway, Tinkaton finishes off this Trevenant with an Aqualung and we move on. And Whimsicott then makes a big move. He gives the black materia to Granbull because Zoroark has the power to control him. And importantly, he tells him don't give the black materia to anyone. That means anyone, like no other person. Don't give it away. Keep it. Don't give. Do not give. Black materia. Keep. Not give. Right? Got it? Okay, good. And then Granbull proves himself completely unable to follow directions. He gives the black materia right back to Whimsicott. God, men are awful. Why didn't Whimsicott just give that materia to a hot girl? They are much better at handling balls. Actually, they're not. Anyway, Whimsicott then hands over the dark materia to Zoroark and all hell breaks loose. He summons a meteor to destroy the Earth, TikTok is banned, the weapons awaken, Twitter is renamed X, and my party of fairy Pokemon is captured by Shinra. And now that we're captured, we breeze through a section where no girls are available. But once we get through that, we face the true final boss of the game. No, not Zoroark, not Ruby Weapon, not forgetting to save, but Scarlet. If we can't slap her silly, we can't progress in the game. But we do. So we head to Medeal, find that Whimsicott is lost in his big white hairy bush, and drop off Jigglypuff so that she can help him shave. And that means that Tinkaton has to carry us for this part of the game. And our next mission is to recover some giant Pokeballs that Shinra is going to blast to the moon. And by moon, I mean into the meteor. But before we do that, we have some unfinished business to attend to. Arbok is calling our name. I want the beta spell and I want it now. And you'd think it would be easy. We have more HP, meaning we won't die to the beta attack this time. But unfortunately, if we attack after it's below half health, it'll just eject our hot girl. And it does, multiple times. In fact, there's literally no way to learn beta without two active characters because Arbok throws out the character who initially attacks it. So I guess we'll once again leave that for later. Ugh. So we head on to Corel to grab giant Pokeball number 1. This part is actually just a battle gauntlet, but the time limit is quite strict, particularly with only one party member. So Altaria speeds up our train car and we jump to the other one to fight. Now, fortunately in Medeal, I grabbed one of the most overpowered materia in the game, Contain, which I equipped to Tinkaton. The magic from this materia not only has high power, but also inflicts powerful status effects. The freeze spell in particular can inflict the stop status, and in the first battle of the gauntlet, Freeze's damage is enough to take out my foe. Unfortunately though, I forgot to equip Tinkaton with the ribbon, which is bad because these dude bros basically continuously use Smog Alert, which inflicts poison and silence. That means that I can't use the contain spell, and I try to heal the silence status, but they just inflict it again, meaning I'm stuck with weak sauce physical attacks and limits. I use a hyper on myself, hoping I can get up Tinkaton's limit quickly, but as it turns out, these bad boys' Smog Alert also inflicts the sadness status, and that slows down my limit meter. Now, I do eventually get through them, but now we're down to 3 minutes 30. I use a hyper outside of battle this time to start with Fury status, and we enter the next battle against Conkeldurr with only 2 minutes 30 left because of my poor menuing skills. So knowing that I have very little time left, I go full offense. I get a few freezes and a limit break in, but eventually I get overwhelmed and I die. But on my second try, I get a little wiser and I remember to equip the ribbon right away. 1 freeze finishes off the first battle and 2 freezes finish off the second. Conkeldurr is next and we stick with the same strategy. He eventually uses Big Guard, having our magic damage, but a gauntlet limit break and a few more freezes and aqua lungs finish him off. And the final mini boss of this gauntlet is Corviknight, and compared to the other 3 battles, this one is kind of funny. It's vulnerable to stop, meaning our freeze spell completely disables him. That allows us to finish him off very quickly, but we reach the train conductor too late, and that means that our choo-choo crashes into Corel and we don't get our huge Pokeball. But whatever, I don't care about the people of Corel. What I do care about is their Ultima Materia, which I purchase and immediately equip. And our next destination is Ho-Oh's Nest. There we have to defend this legendary Pokemon and its egg from Shinra's robot army. We beat Machamp Bot, get the huge Pokeball, and also get the Phoenix Materia. And this cute baby Ho-Oh flies away. It's so cute. There was a rollicking debate in chat about whether Phoenix is a hot girl, but even if she is, having a party revive actually sucks. I want Whimsicott dead.
Permanently.
We head back to Medeal, and immediately the city comes under attack by Corviknight. And this big mon can dish out a lot of damage. He hits hard with a Quake, I Cure, he whacks Tinkaton with an Ultima Beam, and then he runs away. But his Gust attack knocks Whimsicott and Jigglypuff into the planet's stream of soul jizz. Jigglypuff successfully navigates Whimsicott's filthy bush, restoring his memories and emerging only slightly sweatier than when she started, and Jigglypuff then rejoins the party. That means we now have 2 girls again. This is hot. Chapter 7. Girls just want to have final limit breaks. Shinra has 2 more giant Pokeballs, and we head to Junin to steal the first one. Before that, though, it's time to make a monster. I equip Jigglypuff with a Power Soul weapon. This glove has a special feature. When equipped, it causes Jigglypuff's attack power to double if she's at low health and quadruple if she's afflicted with the Death Sentence status. And fortunately, we also have access to the Curse Ring, which afflicts her with that very status. And to make sure that she doesn't die, I also equip her with the added effect materia linked with the Odin materia, which makes her immune to instant death. She now starts every battle with a huge damage boost completely for free. There is one disadvantage to this strategy though, but we'll talk about that later in the run. I also keep her equipped with Death Blow and added Cut, and I give her no magic materia. I know I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, but trust me, this strategy is bonkers. So we head into the underwater reactor, and before I fight the boss, I have just one goal. I need to morph this pirate guy. The reason for that is that I want to challenge Emerald Weapon later in the run, and this item will help me remove the time limit. Now, in the Arbok fight, you might remember that if he knocks a character out of the battle, you can't lose the fight. Your booted character stays alive and carries the torch. However, this fight is different. He knocks both of my characters out of the battle, and this results in a game over. So basically, I gotta kill this guy fast or it's curtains. And on my second try, I equip the Morph Materia to Jigglypuff, and she's able to finish him off, getting us the guidebook. More on that in another video. But now we fight one of the most frustrating bosses of the game, the Carry Armor. This guy not only has powerful magical attacks, but he also has the ability to pick up our characters. Similar to the Pyramid attack in the Reno fight, this counts as a death. But even before that can happen, I get completely overwhelmed by his laser attack and I die. And on the second try, things are not looking good. I get Big Guard up, markedly reducing his damage, and Jigglypuff almost immediately gets captured. And there's only one remedy for this. Dying releases her from the claw. So I kill and revive her, she uses a couple of death blows, and the battle ends within 30 seconds due to her massive damage output. Before we leave, we grab the Leviathan scales, which will help us get some useful items in a future side quest. We shoot down a submarine, fly to Turk Rocket headquarters, and fight with Rude. And he goes down in just 2 hits because of Jigglypuff's massive death blows. Once again, phrasing? And despite the fact that we won the battle, the rocket blasts off. We rescue the huge Pokeball, but an electrical element explodes and Altaria gets caught under a panel. But fortunately, we release him and descend in an escape pod. The rocket crashes into the meteor, but it has no huge Pokeballs in it, and it therefore does literally nothing to this massive flaming rock. And the death of Altaria's spaceship makes him sad. So to cheer him up, we take a brief vacation to Wutai. Tinkaton has some daddy issues, and she takes them out on us by stealing our materia. So after playing some hide and seek, grabbing Tinkaton's Oritsuru, and rescuing Tinkaton and Elena from Don Corneo, we fight the Don's Noivern. And once again, this fight is surprisingly simple, going down in just 3 attacks from Jigglypuff. And now that we've taken it out, it's time to face Tinkaton's Pop-Pop. She has to fight her way up the battle tower, and at the top is her dad, the only difficult battle in the place. Or at least he would be, but we have all of the tools we need to defeat him. Immunity to status effects with Ribbon negates his sleep attacks, Magic Breath does massive damage to him, and most of his attacks do minimal damage to Tinkaton. This means that within a couple of minutes he goes down, getting Tinkaton her final limit break. And speaking of final limit breaks, we have one more we need to grab, Jigglypuff's. Hers is located in Nibelheim, and to get it you have to play a song on the piano. And funny story, there are 2 pianos in Nibelheim. One of those pianos is in Jigglypuff's house, and the other is in the mansion. And of course, I go into the mansion to play that piano, which is the wrong piano, and I encounter some Pumpkaboos. They confuse Jigglypuff, and she slaughters my entire team, including herself, within seconds. But I collect myself, I play the piano in Jigglypuff's house, and that yields her level 4 limit break, Final Heaven. And now that that's taken care of, it's time to start the final leg of the game. Chapter 8, Stop the Rock. Now, we have to get serious. There's a meteor hurtling towards the Earth, and it's time to stop it. We board the submarine and gather the final huge Pokeball, which I forgot to get after I sunk the submarine, and this materia is completely unimportant. And then we grab the Key of the Ancients, which is extremely important. And before we do anything else, it's time to get our revenge on Arbok and get Beta. In my first battle with him, Jigglypuff knocks him out in 1 hit. Wow. My second try, I hit him a little too quick, and Tinkaton takes him out by accident. My third time, Jigglypuff counters and takes him out. And the fourth time, and the fifth time too, but I take off the counter materia and we skip ahead a bit because the best strategy is actually to use the gravity materia. Demi can't kill, meaning we can safely take down Arbok's HP without him throwing us out of battle. And I eventually get it to cast Beta, and it's too powerful, and Jigglypuff bites the big one. So I re-equip the elemental materia to defense, I throw a couple of grenades, and I finally learn the spell on Jigglypuff and finish him off. And then I do it a second time so that Tinkaton's enemy skill materia can learn it too. Huge success! We then visit Buggenhagen to deliver the huge Pokeballs, and he follows us to the City of the Ancients to use the key we just obtained in our submarining Sharpedo. And what do we see? Well, apparently Gardevoir is still busy at her pool party, so she can't rejoin our band of fairies. God, she's partying while we save the world. Lazy! But her friend and fellow partygoer Mega Aggron comes to the defense of her character. But it's our God-given right to gossip, so we aren't going to take this shit. Now, remember how I said there was a problem with Jigglypuff's weapon? Well, we first see that in this battle. Mega Aggron can't be damaged at the beginning of the battle, and by the time he's vulnerable, Jigglypuff's Doom status has worn off. That means we now have an extremely low attack power weapon with no enhancements. Fortunately though, enemy skill, in particular our breath attacks, are still broken. And after I exhale all over this white rock, Jigglypuff's limit break finishes off the Diamondic monstrosity. And believe me, Jigglypuff's weapon is going to be great, but we're going to have more problems very soon. Shinra shoots Aggron with a big gun, and he shoots back, killing this poor soulless ginger. But Shinra's beam also has the effect of opening up the northern crater. But before we can head there to finish what they started, Hojo decides to shoot Zoroark with a giant Mako gun to provide him with additional power. And so it's our mission to stop him. And upon re-entering Midgar to do so, we encounter the true final boss of this game once again, Jigglypuff herself. This Octillery uses normal shell to confuse Jigglypuff, and she wipes out the party once again within seconds. But our Puffball rises up again, and we enter Midgar's sewers. And there, we encounter the Turks one final time. Interestingly, because I saved Elena back in Wutai Village, she allows us to skip this fight. But they've stolen enough Pokemon from their rightful trainers that I'm not on board. So with Jigglypuff's massively powerful strike, she's able to take out Elena in just 5 attacks, and the Turks retreat for the last time. But this is not Shinra's final trick. The company has created a giant robot with which it hopes to capture my fairies. But this guy too is quickly destroyed by Jigglypuff, bringing us through to the dastardly wizardly poke scientist himself. And once again, the time-limited nature of Jigglypuff's Doom boost presents a problem. The first two phases go super fast due to her boosts, but once her Doom status wears off in the third phase, the battle slows down significantly. However, her and Tinkaton's damage output is high enough that there isn't too much he can do to stop us, and he goes down. And that means two things. First, it's time to rub two of our fairy balls together and create a Jigglypuff and Whimsicott fusion. It'll be ready in about 9 months. And second, if you've been enjoying this video so far, it's time for you to Gmax smite the like button. But now that those two tasks are done, it's time to head into the Northern Crater to defeat Zoroark and save the world. Chapter 9, the final battle. We head through the Northern Crater, grabbing a bunch of items along the way, and we finally face off in the final battle. Or battles, I should say. Our first fight is with Januvia's Togedemaru form, and as usual, we have Jigglypuff kick this giant glucose ball away with her boosted attacks and a limit break. But then the real battle begins, the battle against Zoroark. The first battle against Bizarro Zoroark can be fought with 1 to 3 parties, and the number of parties you use depends on a number of factors. But essentially, because my average character level is less than 53, we are only going to fight him with 1 party. Fortunately, this battle resets Jigglypuff's Doom status, meaning we start out doing massive damage with her physical attacks. I also have Tinkaton cast Ultima, and this monstrosity goes down very quickly, yielding to safer Zoroark. And once again, this transition resets Jigglypuff's Doom status. I start by having Tinkaton cast Ultima and Jigglypuff cast Big Guard, and unfortunately, I forgot to equip an extremely important materia on Jigglypuff, Long Range. And when safer Zoroark rises into the air, he can't be hit by close range attacks, and that means that all I can do is have Tinkaton cast Ultima and Jigglypuff heal. Jigglypuff's Doom then wears off, and I try to recast Doom on Jigglypuff using the Death Sentence status, but that sadly does not work. And safer Zoroark then casts the Supernova spell, a massive bomb that destroys the entire solar system, but somehow doesn't destroy my hot girls. They're amazing. And then he casts Break on Jigglypuff, taking her out. Fortunately, I'm able to revive her, but now her damage output is way low. I tried a Death Sentence a couple more times, but no luck. I have a funny feeling that Death Immunity prevents Death Sentence status from being cast on her. That's despite the fact that the Curse Ring can start you off with that status. If you do know why this happens, or if I just got unlucky, please let me know in the comments. And once again, safer Zoroark rises and casts Supernova. And this time, disaster strikes, and I don't even realize it right away, because I've queued up Tinkaton's Limit Break, which does some good damage. But then Jigglypuff immediately attacks my entire party. She destroys both of my dainty fairy Pokemon with 1 strike. As it turns out, Supernova inflicted the Confusion status on Jigglypuff, and because she had the Curse Ring equipped and not the ribbon, she's not immune. And because she had the Mega Alt Materia equipped, she was able to strike down the entire party instead of just 1 member. So after a little bit of grinding and equipping the Long Range Materia, I try one more time. I take on Januvia Togedemaru, who goes down pretty quickly, and Bizarro Zoroark suffers a similar fate. This time, though, with a long-range materia, I'm never locked out of attacking. And instead of the Death Blow materia, I now have the Mug materia linked with added cut, meaning my accuracy will not be an issue. Jigglypuff's Doom still wears off, which is sad because it cuts her power, but Tinkaton still has the Ultima spell available. And eventually, safer Zoroark rises into the air to cast a devastating Supernova attack. Will it confuse? Not this time, but it does cause the Mini and Frog statuses, meaning Jigglypuff does even less damage. But we cure off those 2 statuses and continue our onslaught. Then we're able to do a ton of damage before safer Zoroark rises into the air again. Supernova comes and this time inflicts no status effect, and a Mega Elixir brings us back from the brink of death. But then safer Z immediately uses a Heartless Angel, bringing our party down to 1 HP. But that's manageable. So I heal Tinkaton, her limit becomes available, and I strike, and safer Zoroark is finally defeated. All that's left is the mandatory solo battle with Whimsicott, who smites Zoroark with a single slash, defeating this menace and bringing an end to this challenge. So next, choose your own adventure. Watch me do this challenge with either Final Fantasy VIII or Final Fantasy X. And if you don't click one of them, all hot girls will be permanently absorbed into the live stream. I don't make the rules and life's not fair. Thanks for watching and goodbye.